Even though The Boys has come out at a pretty quick pace, releasing 4 seasons in 5 years, it still felt like a long time since I had seen the show. So, to refresh my memory, I started the show over from square one, Season 1, Episode 1. And starting from the beginning and watching each season back to back, man, does one thing become apparent. This is not the same show it used to be. There's a number of reasons why the show feels a far away from its first outing, but the show's desire in the later seasons to completely drape itself in the specific political issues of today is its largest problem. Going back and watching the series from the beginning allows you to clearly see how much things have changed in that regard. And when you consider how The Boys was able to draw in viewers, and that the creator and the writers and producers have remained largely the same, it just feels like The Boys was a trap all along. Where the creators wanted to pull people in with a great show featuring gripping storylines, memorable characters, good humor, fun action, and incredible effects, but slowly turn the series into a transparent vessel to deliver their political beliefs. Of course, there are other problems with the more recent seasons of The Boys, like the increasingly perverse content and uninteresting storylines where most of the characters feel lost compared to their previous journeys, and we'll talk about those too. The first couple seasons of The Boys, though, were a very fun ride. But the creators have let their perversions and their politics get in the way of telling a good story and entertaining their audience. Let me make something clear up front. I have no interest in being political with this channel, as I think specific contemporary politics usually have no business being in films or shows. It's rarely something that makes the story being told better, and it almost always just assures that your art will age terribly as the issues of the day run their course and get replaced with new hot-button issues. Timeless political ideas, on the other hand, like the general ideas of corruption and authority, do very much have a place in storytelling because they're timeless, and they're ubiquitous to the human societal experience. How societies and populaces can backslide into horrible situations by abdicating their voice, their freedoms, and their power to those who wish to subjugate them, all of these topics are viable themes for compelling storytelling, and all can be explored without mimicking the issues and political figures of the month. Simply said, if the political messaging of your show or movie can be mistaken for an SNL skit, a Fox News segment, or a Daily Show rant, then you're fucking up. The only time I mention anything political is in response to overt political messages that the show or movie itself is trying to push. I only offer pushback. And this video is going to be no different, but it has to be discussed, because you can't honestly review Season 4 of The Boys without talking about the elephant and the donkey in the room. While this video won't be offering my own politics, I'm not going to skirt around the stance of The Boys has evolved because it's tangibly affected the quality of the show. So if you have no interest in hearing anything political, I understand completely, and I'm on your side of things. I don't want to have to cover these topics in a damn TV show about people in capes and underpants. That being said, let this stand as a fair warning before we get into things, for anyone who wants to avoid anything to do with politics. It only makes sense to start from the beginning, and the first season of The Boys was a smash hit. I, like many others, simply loved it. It was the epitome of good entertainment. It was clever and funny and novel. It had incredible effects and amazing sound design. It put complex, interesting characters into some seriously fucked up situations, and their stories, and the overall story, sucked you in and kept you hooked. It showed us what a satirical, dark version of Marvel, aimed at a more adult audience and grounded in our real world, would look like. And it came at the perfect time, right at the height of the MCU's power, giving those who wanted a different take on comic book superheroes a bloody good time. And the cherry on top, and part of the reason the show was so successful right out of the gate, was that there was virtually no mention of anything political in that first season. In fact, they didn't take aim at much of anything in Season 1. Sure, there was some benign social commentary and some digs at Christianity, which is par for the course for some of these people, but that's as far as it goes. Outside of Homelander, there's no allusions to real-world political figures or thinly veiled diatribes on current-day issues. And it's no coincidence that this first season is held in such high regard and boasts the series' best audience scores. Season 2, upon rewatch, was mostly free of these problems as well, for most of the season. The show was just as bloody, funny, and smart as it was in Season 1. But toward the end, you started to see some worrying signs about the direction The Boys was heading in, not the least of which was showing Homelander and a specific group of Americans being led by a literal Nazi. And then you had Season 3, where the mask really started to slip. The show also took a pretty perverted turn in the third season, and it didn't take long to start. 10 minutes into the first episode, we had a soup crawling into a guy's dick before accidentally obliterating him from the inside. This was also the season that had Seth Rogen beating it to a superhero cam girl and the infamous and explicit Herogasm superhero orgy. But on the political front, it explored ideas like racism, sexism, authoritarianism, and just about every topic from current day headlines pretty regularly. And not in a generalized, let's discuss kind of way, but more of an assign blame to these groups of people kind of way. It's not thought-provoking, it's just finger-pointing. Which brings us to Season 4, where the mask was completely off. The Boys is borderline unwatchable now. If I wasn't reviewing it for the channel, I would have stopped watching pretty quickly. I mean, they're harping on issues like the 25th Amendment, abortion, critical soup theory, defunding the soups, January 6th, vaccines. They even had a scene acting holier than thou on the issue of child trafficking, which is beyond ironic considering how the industry lambasted Sound of Freedom. There's a new freedom and fascism-loving soup named Firecracker, and the show made sure she put the cracker in Firecracker.
You know, when I first met you, I thought you were kind of uppity, but you're one of the good ones.
She and Homelander and their ilk are looking to put their political dissidents in internment camps. Just any opportunity to get immersed in the story and escape from the constant deluge of political messaging in the real world is gone. Sure, the show has poked fun at things like corporations and their ingenuine pushes for inclusion and representation, but it never carries the same level of vitriol as they have for the other side of things. Mocking the girls get it done slogan or Maeve's pride-filled microwave lasagna is not the same as equating people who believe in gun ownership with fascist authoritarians that secretly yearn for Nazi leadership. To be clear, the political statements aren't the majority of what this season is, and it's somewhat front-loaded. But it's enough to affect the season's focus, and it can make it hard to get through the first couple episodes. And the perversions have reached a new high, or low, as well. Season 4 gives you the chance to watch 7 naked guys fighting with their dongs up close and dead center, glimpse a high-definition picture of a butthole, watch Homelander make a guy jack off in front of everyone, and sticking something up a guy's butthole and webhole. And it all culminated in a scene where Huey gets sexually assaulted, and the show plays it for laughs. Which is not an interpretation. The mentally deranged creator says it was played for laughs and thought it was hilarious.
Yo, what the fuck? That was so fucked up, you guys.
Believe me, I'm no Puritan, but these scenes are too much. It's one thing to tolerate these scenes, but to like these scenes, or to come up with these scenes and to want to put them in your show, that takes an exceptionally sick mind. Maybe this season could have overcome its descent into political diatribes if the storylines were more compelling. It's still just some of, oi, Homelander's got me wife's son, and Homelander trying to connect with Ryan and having entertaining mental breakdowns. So those are a bit stale. But even the new storylines weren't that interesting. Huey's dad becomes a V'd-up murderer, Frenchie has a gay arc, Mother's Milk's story lasts about 2 episodes. The Deep bickering with the octopus he's plugging was more interesting than anything going on with Frenchie or Kimiko. The stories were just not as creative as they once were, and the characters' problems aren't solved in some clever way like they always were in the first couple seasons. And it just seems like they ran out of things for the characters to do. So much so that they just created this whole history for Starlight to create problems for her to run into this season. We've known Starlight for 3 seasons. It's weird to have things pop up that are A, totally out of character, and B, have never been mentioned. As the show has gotten more political and the characters and storylines have gone into different directions, the audience rating of The Boys has dropped every single season, leaving it barely cracking 50% in Season 4. And of course, it's blamed on review bombing, which is the talking point of the month, I suppose, because it's impossible that people were turned off by the direction the show's gone. No, the whole world accepts and is just so eager to hear the political views of the show's creators, and any dissent is cheap fake AI-generated Russian propaganda. Viewership is up compared to the last season's premiere, but I've only seen data for the premiere episodes when people don't really know yet what they're going to get. So we'll just have to see how those numbers hold up week to week. The Boys definitely plays to a certain demographic, one who loves brutal, bloody action interspliced with good comedic moments. And that demographic, traditionally, isn't really inclined toward the same political positions the creators hold. So what better way to tip the scales than to weasel your way into that demographic's good graces and gradually try and change their opinions on things? I mean, how did we go from this?
Oh, fucking diabolical.
To this.
Before Singer replaces us
with a bunch of transgender illegals. Abortion is murder!
We know if the rape is legitimate, the woman's body has a way to reject that pregnancy.
I just had abortion mansplained to me by a guy who refuses to be alone with any woman who isn't his wife.
Look, this is a white Christian nation founded on white Christian values.
40 million to Elizabeth Warren's super PAC. How's that sound?
100 million to Black Lives Matter.
No, not those people!
The creator even came out and said the show has always satirized the right wing. Well, outside of the very idea of Homelander, you're not going to find that in season 1. So I think stated more accurately, what he meant is that the show was always going to be a satire of the right wing. And there are plenty of people online echoing his statement, saying that the people who don't like the show as it is now just didn't pick up on the subtle nature of the commentary until season 4. And all I have to say about that is, it's sad there are people out there who think they were being subtle with this.
Fuck you and your life!
Our thoughts and prayers go out to Kuldeep Singh's family.
Thoughts and prayers. Godless, inhuman supervillains started pouring across our borders.
What do SJWs like Victoria Newman want us to do? There are illegal immigrants pouring into this country every day.
I can't lash out like some raging entitled maniac. That's a white man's luxury.
To reiterate, the problem doesn't lie with the political position the show has taken up. It's the idea of taking up specific issues and talking points that were headlines less than 6 months ago, and most of which are still headlines today. The shit most people want to get away from. The idea that we've been left with zero sense of escapism in a brutal variation of a superhero story is ludicrous. Mix that in with subpar storylines, characters that feel lost, and increasingly perverted shit, and it's dragged the whole show down, far from its former glory. But no, it's just review bombing. Now, I wouldn't even say season 4 was a terrible season, just that it's a far cry from what this show used to be. It's not Acolyte levels of bad. If you can look past the front-loaded politics, it's a so-so season. It still has the same brutal action and fantastic effects, if not much else that resembles previous seasons. And it ends on a relative high note, promising more interesting events to come next season. I'll also acknowledge that The Boys could have been a trap all along, or simply that the modern-day political climate got to the creators. After all, the show came out in 2019, so I can appreciate that this show has only ever existed in these more politically contentious times. But having just rewatched the slow but sure, purposeful creep toward its current state, and knowing the political propensities of the creators, I know which option I'm putting my money on. If you like Season 4 and the political issues it brings up or agree with the creators' politics, more power to you. Enjoy. But I stand by my belief that so clearly taking a side, letting it affect your art, and cutting your potential audience in half is a mistake. And I didn't have anywhere else to put this, so I'll put it here. Anthony Starr deserves an award for his work as Homelander. Despite the quality of the show, his ability to take this character through everything he has and believably portraying the character as conflicted and unstable as he is nothing short of incredible. It looks like The Boys will have one last season after this one, and if it continues its current trends, it'll definitely be worth discussing. Just maybe not for the right reasons. Did you make it through season 4 of The Boys? If you did, what was your opinion about how the season handled political issues? Did you think the quality of the season was on par with the first 2 seasons? Let us know in the comments below. Also remember to leave a like on the video if you liked it, and subscribe to HateWatchers for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for discussing politics on a razor's edge with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.